Welcome back to the library. Today I'm going to be talking about Chapter 4 of the Feminine Mystique, so grab a drink, have a seat, and enjoy the show. He enjoyed her company and skills, where she also... This glaring contradiction makes me How am I supposed to get job experience if no one will give me job? I was unaware that women used to not automatically release. Oh my God. Clergymen interrupted women's rights conventions, waving Bibles and quoting from the scriptures. In the 1850s and 60s, a lot of Bible-thumping clergymen opposed women's rights conventions because they felt it went against the biblical teachings of what women were supposed to be doing. They quoted all the same passages that the cult I was in loved to quote. Woman is subservient to man because she was created from a man's rib. The husband is the head of the family in a marriage. The wife's role is submission in all aspects. I think these Bible-thumping idiot clergymen, and the cult assholes who subjugated me, are interpreting the Bible incorrectly.
You are fired.
They are reading the Bible as some sort of totalitarian, authoritarian nightmare. Everything I know about God was taught to me when I was a little girl. I grew up going to a Protestant church where they used the Bible to empower everyone in their congregation, both men and women. I was taught that although Eve did become Adam's wife because she was formed from his rib, she was his love. She was respected by Adam. He enjoyed her company and skills, while she also enjoyed his company and skills. My church taught that men and women had unique characteristics given to them by God, which served the purpose of enhancing each other's lives. My church never said that women had to stay home and that men had to work outside the home. Most of my mom's friends had jobs. The one or two of them who were housewives, like my mother, were housewives by choice. I understood that. Men and women were not created to fight with each other, to wield power over each other, to constantly compete with each other. Men and women were created to work together and to use their own unique characteristics to help each other. Christianity teaches that God is love, so it confuses me why idiot clergymen and Christian cults militarize God as an overbearing asshole who wouldn't know love if it punched him in the face. God is wrathful. But his wrath is not an unjust wrath that he just throws at an entire section of the population for no reason. This glaring contradiction makes me realize the cults are evil and they're not actually Christian. They're just using the Bible, which is a powerful book, to wield power over people and try to signal that they're virtuous when they're actually power-hungry buttholes. They thought if the women get power and show the world that men and women are complementary, that we both need each other, they'd lose their religious power over all the men and women. Ernestine Rose, a rabbi's daughter, always insisted in the bitterest days of the fight for women's rights that women's enemy was not man. We do not fight with man himself, but only with bad principles. If people realize men and women are complementary, then we can both work together to solve problems. The people in power who have the bad principles don't want us to know that. Throughout all of time, humans have had to deal with bad principles created by corrupt assholes that give us all the problems we have. For some reason, those of us who realize this get yelled at by social justice woke idiots who complain that they don't have any power. They always complain that other people have power, then disempower themselves by dividing themselves from the rest of us who are screaming that we should work together because it would give us all the power we need to get rid of the bad principles. It's like all the episodes of Seinfeld, where one of the characters always finds fault in someone they're dating.
She eats her peas one at a time.
She's one of these low talkers.
You know, because he's a high talker.
Bit of a close talker.
It's really stupid to keep finding the fault in someone who is trying to work with you. Instead of attacking the bad principles and working together, we fall for the corrupt assholes' division tactics that make us fight with each other. We need to quit making regular people our enemies and focus on the actual problems if we are ever going to find solutions. But how do women get legislators to let them keep their own earnings or their own children after divorce when they do not even have a vote? This is a what came first, the chicken or the egg question. It's like when you try to get a job for the first time and they say you need more job experience. How am I supposed to get job experience if no one will give me a job? I was unaware that women used to not automatically receive custody of children after divorce. I didn't know that feminists had to fight for this because everything about society back then makes me think that since women and babies seem to be tied together in people's minds, it would just make sense that the woman would usually get the children. However, women were not only expected to have the singular function of raising children, they were also not trusted to raise children if a man wasn't present. That doesn't make any sense. In modern day, laws have gone too far the other way, because now women are automatically likely to get custody of children, even if they don't want them or are unfit mothers. As of 2018, 79.9% of women in divorces get custody of their children. The final battle for the vote was fought in the 20th century by the growing numbers of college-trained women, led by Carrie Chapman Catt, daughter of the Iowa Prairie, educated at Iowa State, a teacher and a newspaper woman, whose husband, a successful engineer, firmly supported her battles. I went to Iowa State, and I know of the building known as Catt Hall, but I never knew anything about the origins of the building's name. My modern-day experience at Iowa State was less than stellar, but the history nerd in me does think it is very cool that Carrie Chapman Catt has a building named after her. Carrie Chapman Catt worked 33 years for the right of women around the world to vote, including the final campaign to secure suffrage for women in the United States from 1915 to 1920. It was her winning plan to campaign for suffrage at both the state and federal levels that ultimately proved successful in the passage of the 19th Amendment, guaranteeing women the right to vote. Now, on to Chapter 5. I didn't know what the fuck solipsism meant, so I looked it up. The definition didn't help, even though it was written in English. A leftist must have written it. It sounds a lot like, a woman is anyone who identifies as a woman. After 900 years of staring at the definition of solipsism, I was finally able to gather that it meant the theory where nothing else matters but yourself. Basically, it's an incredibly pretentious synonym for narcissism. His own memories of the sexual jealousy he felt for his father, whose wishes she also gratified, were the basis of his theory of the Oedipus complex. With his wife, as with his mother and sisters, his needs, his desires, his wishes were the sun around which the household revolved. When the noise of his sisters practicing the piano interrupted his studies, the piano disappeared. Anna Freud recalled years later, and with it all opportunities for his sisters to become musicians. Freud did not see this attitude as a problem or cause for any problem in women. It was woman's nature to be ruled by man and her sickness to envy him. Freud's theories of psychology seem to be based on his opinions rather than anything scientific about the brain, which annoys me. Of course, there's nothing wrong with theories, but this habit society has of taking one person's opinion and saying that it is a fact is very wrong. Opinions are not facts. It would cause problems if every psychologist who studies Freud uses his opinions as facts to tell people they're broken when their behavior could be caused by something else entirely unrelated. People are all different, so why do we keep acting like there is one singular solution for all people? Jesus Christ. Freud is not the only academic guilty of turning his opinions into facts. Robin DiAngelo's racist opinion of white people that is one of the tenets of critical race theory has been turned into a fact for some people. I say for some people because some of us are not racist assholes like her. Telling the world to abide by your opinion because you're egotistical and narcissistic enough to think that your opinions are facts causes society to suck. Any feminist who thinks a man has a giant ego should look at the size of Robin DiAngelo's ego. It's the size of multiple galaxies. I see no problem with psychologists discussing Freud's theories with their patients, or social scientists discussing DiAngelo's theories with their students, but it's the shutting down of individual thought as if Freud's and D'Angelo's words are gospel truth, as if they're the solution to society's problems, while actually being the cause of society's problems, is insane to me.
Well, as I write in my book, stop hitting yourself. Stop hitting yourself. Why are you still hitting yourself?
Analysts who have freed themselves from Freud's bias and joined other behavioral scientists in studying the human need to grow are beginning to believe that this is the basic human need, and that interference with it in any dimension is the source of psychic trouble. Yes, the human need to grow and learn is a basic human need. That's why people think they'll be happy doing nothing, but once they actually start doing nothing, they become depressed and anxious. They're not growing. Well, maybe growing wider. But they're not growing intellectually. They're not being challenged, and it's detrimental to their mental health. The god-awful cult stunted my growth all the time. They told me that I couldn't pursue any new directions in life because they were my purpose. They were supposed to be my end-all. They faked growth all the time by throwing endless Bible studies, fake Christian books, retreats, and conferences at me. Of course, they also made me pay for all this shit with my own money. They lied and told me that if I read all of their books and went to all of their conferences and retreats and did everything they said, I'd grow into a wonderful person who had all her needs fulfilled. Obviously, they were wrong. They were guiding me in a very bad direction. I know now they were stunting my growth while saying they were helping my growth. Instead of spending my 20s learning new things and expanding my horizons and pursuing my dreams of acting, I was running on a hamster wheel of terrible cult ideas. They told me I was a terrible person without them, that my acting dreams were heathenish, and that I was worthless without them. I ran into astronomical amounts of psychic trouble the longer I stayed in the cult and listened to their piles of bullshit. Once I escaped and started pursuing my actual desires, I began to fill myself with things I actually needed, which helped me grow genuinely as a person. On to Chapter 6. We must recognize that beneath the superficial classifications of sex and race, the same potentialities exist, recurring generation after generation, only to perish because society has no place for them. Margaret Mead, From the South Seas, written in 1939. People perpetually refuse to understand colorblindness theory, either from choice or ignorance. I don't know which, but I think this statement by social scientist Margaret Mead captures the essence of how I see colorblindness. A person's race is superficial. This does not mean it does not matter. A person's beauty is also superficial, but this also does not mean it does not matter. It just means that because of the superficiality of these two things, neither race nor beauty is indicative of how much potential a person does or does not have. Race and beauty do not dictate a person's personality, desires, emotions, or thoughts. People should not be judged by racial stereotypes because stereotypes are also not indicative of an entire race. The most important thing to remember is that color blindness does not mean that race is being ignored. I constantly hear people who oppose color blindness say this, and it makes me want to bang my head repeatedly against the nearest hard surface. The opposite of color blindness is racism. Color blindness means I don't treat you unfairly based on your race. Not being colorblind means I see your race and then treat you differently based on it, which is the literal definition of racism. The real definition, not the gaslighting definition that says racism means the opposite of what it truly means. I think when society focuses on sex or race too much, human potential diminishes because people feel like they can't ever get anywhere. I despise people picking at these subjects with the intention of dividing everyone and pitting us all against each other. We need to use our differences to help each other, not tear each other down.
Stop it.
Well, that's all I have to scream about for these 3 chapters. So don't be stupid, and I'll see you on the next video.